Welcome to the Shoemaker Lab. This is your host, Dane Shoemaker. I'm the founder and CEO of Shoemaker Films. We're a Greater Philadelphia-based video production company. We work with businesses in the Greater Philadelphia area or around producing video content, anything from podcasts, social media content, brand stories, documentaries, any kind of video asset that might live on their website or social media. We can work with you to help you to do that. So if that's interesting to you, feel free to reach out to us. On this podcast, we often share, information, tips about video marketing, production, tips for small businesses. We also frequently interview local businesses, entrepreneurs, creatives. So if that's interesting to you, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube, or follow us on the various social media platforms, as well as the audio listening platforms as well, like Apple and Spotify. So today is a solo show. We launched our podcast really back in January. We started reaching out to local businesses to interview them. And today's podcast is really about, why we started a business, or why we started a podcast for our business, right? First of all, we work with a handful of clients today where we produce their own podcast. And it is a great tool on so many levels, and we'll go through that. We actually put out a video a couple of months ago, why your business should start a podcast. I'll link to that in the description below. But today is really why we started a podcast. So Shoemaker Films, right? So we'll kind of go through 5 reasons. Essentially we're calling this Shoemaker Lab, and we're just going to dive right into it right now. So Shoemaker Lab, the reason why we're calling it Shoemaker Lab and not Shoemaker Films podcast or, anything else, because we really look at this as like an experiment, but also we're in the field practicing our craft here, right? So our business, we produce videos. We also produce podcasts. We produce social media content for brands. But this is an opportunity for me and my team to really be out in the field practicing our craft, right? Whether that's every single week, we're going out and interviewing local businesses. So we're in different environments. And first and foremost, we always do in-person interviews. I think just personally, we spend so much time on Zooms and Google Meets and WebExes and all that stuff doing things virtually that I believe people are craving in-person interaction. And I think the production quality overall is much better when we can be in person talking to somebody and we're setting up cameras and lights and mics. It's really an opportunity to show our services and our capabilities when we're coming into, a business, right? And we're setting up things, we're setting up lights. There's different scenarios that we're faced with, different challenges, right? Maybe it's a small space and we have to figure out how to, use some wider lenses or get creative with lighting. Maybe there's just different aspects of going into a space and figuring out what the best lighting and audio and camera setup is, right? And so doing that every week with our own podcast makes us better at doing that with our clients, right? So that's really the first and foremost. We're in the lab, we're practicing our craft. We're also testing out ideas, right? We're experimenting, right? The podcast is really the first part of it, right? You have your podcast, your long form, and then what you do with it after the recorded episode is released. There's infinite amount of things that you can do with a podcast to repurpose that content, whether you cut it up into shorts and put it out, on social media like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, right? You can also take, transcripts from the podcast and turn those into blog posts, turn those into carousels. If you have enough of a podcast over time, you could actually take those and build them into chapters of a book. So what we're doing is basically using our podcast to test out new ideas, test out different types of content, and really get better at, analyzing trends, analyzing data, and use that to, share that wisdom with our own clients. So again, we work with other clients to produce their podcasts. Why wouldn't we have our own podcast to kind of have some skin in the game and drink our own Kool-Aid, right? So the next reason is really around, we'll call it business development. Just to be very transparent, we see our own podcast as a tool for building relationships with clients or potential clients in the market where we want to build a relationship with, and they could be potentially a client, right? The podcast is free right now, right? We might charge in the future a couple $100 or something as a sort of loss leader, because it is a lot of significant time investment, right? It's 2+ hours on site with a client. You're setting up stuff, equipment. You're having the 30-minute, 45-minute conversation with a business, tearing it down. Then there's 3, 4, 5 hours of editing time to put together that podcast. That's almost a full work day, right? Of time spent to produce one episode of a podcast. It's not exactly the most efficient means. It would be much cheaper and more efficient for us to rent out a studio, or if we have our own studio space, basically set up the podcast day, and we have 4, 5, 6 guests come in, and we boom, interview them right in a row. I think it's more interesting and more engaging to be in a business's place of business, right? And interviewing them there, really getting their vibe under, the business owner is going to be a little bit more relaxed because they're in their own space. It's an opportunity to showcase their business. And, so that's why we do that. So it is a significant time investment on our part to do this, but I believe it's great networking, right? It's a very simple thing to do. Is when you're talking to somebody, maybe at a networking event, or someone on the street, or even a cold outreach, right? So I might send an email to a business, hey, do you want to be on our podcast? It's free marketing for them, because we're going to put this video out on YouTube. We're going to put the audio out on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, etc. Then we're also going to create usually between 2 to 3 shorts for social media. A lot of times we're boosting them as well. So we'll create a nice 15 to 30 second, essentially commercial for that business, the guest, and we're going to put that out. It's a fun little clip promoting that business as well as our podcast episode, but then we're going to boost it, right? We'll throw $25, $50 towards that. And now you have, 5, 10, 20,000 impressions within the greater Philadelphia area that maybe are seeing that ad or that boosted post about that business. So there's a lot of value to not only us, we're promoting our company, but we're also promoting the guests that are on our podcast. And our hope is, hey, 10%, 20% of the guests that come onto our show maybe become a client down the road, or someone will see that episode and say, hey, I really like what Shoemaker Films is doing. I'm going to reach out to them, see if they can put together a brand story or something like that for us, right? So it's really a business development and networking tool in having a podcast. And that's something that we talk about with our own clients, right? Because look, if you're in the industry doing anything, right, you have the opportunity to create your own podcast. It's a way to bring people into your orbit, provide value, right? Maybe share expertise, but also just have a regular conversation about your business with people that are on your show. One of our core missions really is around helping the small business owner, right? So kind of what we're talking about, having somebody on our podcast is an opportunity to promote that business and help that small business owner, right? This is a newer marketing trend, right? Podcasting, obviously social media has been around for a long time, but I think podcasting has really gotten popular in the last, 2-3 years, especially video podcasting. And, this is an opportunity to, again, introduce our services to a business, but really introduce the world of digital marketing, podcasting to a business that maybe isn't too hip to that or familiar with that, right? So this is right now it's a free platform for local businesses in the greater Philadelphia area to come on our show, share with the world, share with their target market what they do. And it's a great opportunity for any business that's looking to promote themselves, and generate some awareness and potentially bring in some more more people into their store, more eyeballs on their brand, their website, etc. Right. The last thing really, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but we're creating a lot of our own content, right? Obviously we're going out every week, we're interviewing businesses, or we're doing podcast episodes like this where it's more sharing information, sharing knowledge about a particular topic. And it's really our main marketing driver, right? We don't spend a lot of money on ads. We're not doing a lot of cold outreach. We're not knocking on doors necessarily, but this is our main marketing driver, right? So every single week there's an episode going out of Shoemaker Lab, and that's on YouTube. It's going to be across all the podcasting platforms as well. And then there's clips that are shared on social media, right? So short form video clips. And again, like I said before, this can all be repurposed into different types of content, right? So this is really our main marketing driver at the moment. And so it's free content, not, it's free necessarily. All it costs is time for us. We already own the equipment. We're already using the equipment for clients. We might as well use it for our own marketing, right? And provide value to our audience. So that's really it. I mean, there's a ton of benefits to starting a podcast. These are the reasons why we started a podcast, right? So, it's an opportunity, right? We call it Shoemaker Lab. It's an opportunity for us to practice our craft, be in the field, using our equipment, getting better at interviewing, getting better at lighting and audio scenarios. It's a business development and networking tool for us. It's a way to help businesses in the area by providing a platform for them to share their story, share their their business, right? And then really an opportunity for us to create content and be the primary marketing driver for Shoemaker Films. So go ahead and subscribe to this if you found some value in this. Hopefully you can check out our podcast. We interview, typically the goal will be about 50-50. We've been heavy on the interviews the last, month or two since we launched the podcast, but moving forward, I'd like to do more, thought leadership, sharing information about what we do, answering frequently asked questions from clients. So expect, interviews, but also, topical content, maybe trends in digital marketing, things like that. So appreciate your time. Take care. Thanks for listening today. Shoemaker Lab is an original production by Shoemaker Films, LLC. If you enjoyed today's content, please consider subscribing on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your content. Follow us on Instagram at shoemaker.films. And if you're a business that's either interested in our video production services or would like to be a guest on the show, get in touch by using the contact form on our website, shoemakerfilms.com.